Welcome to Echoes of the Unknown, the podcast where we'll be exploring some of the world's most fascinating unsolved mysteries. I'm Jack Montgomery, and today we're traveling back to 1996 when a strange series of events unfolded that led to one of Canada's most perplexing unsolved murders. A young man from British Columbia was found dead, half naked and brutally battered, in the parking lot of a hotel under construction in Knoxville, Tennessee. His truly bizarre cross-continental journey continues to baffle investigators 3 decades later. This case starts in Canada, in Surrey, British Columbia, to be exact. Surrey is the second largest city in the province, following Vancouver. Robert Dennis Blair Adams, known simply as Blair by his friends and family, was born on December 28, 1964. He lived what appeared to be a stable, ordinary life. He maintained steady employment, had no criminal record, and had built up considerable savings. But sometime in early July 1996, Blair began behaving erratically. He told friends, family, and co-workers that someone was trying to kill him. He confided in his mother that someone had been spreading rumors about him. His apparent paranoia manifested in concrete actions. He changed his locks multiple times and expressed growing anxiety about break-in attempts at his home. When pressed about who might want to harm him, Blair couldn't or wouldn't provide specifics. Before we get to where this strange story really takes off, we should provide some more background about Blair. By 1995, he was 31 years old and found himself working on a construction project in Frankfurt, Germany for his stepfather, who owned a prefab construction company named SS Cedar Homes. The company had operations in both Canada and Frankfurt. Blair was enjoying his life in Germany when in November of 1995 he met a German woman at a party. They began dating, and Blair's new girlfriend described him as a gentleman and a great boyfriend. However, this isn't necessarily the reputation he had with other people in his German life, some of whom described him as occasionally aggressive or confrontational. Blair also reportedly had a history with alcohol and substance abuse. At one point, he began to exhibit behavior that some described as paranoia, expressing concerns to friends about people coming at him or spreading rumors about him. By the summer of 1996, Blair had moved back to Canada and started a new job as a construction site foreman. He seemed to have it all: good friends, a good job, and what appeared to be a totally normal life. He started attending Alcoholics Anonymous, and his friends believed that contributed to the positive direction his life was taking. He was really beginning to take control of his life. However, Blair's friends and family soon began to notice that he was becoming increasingly paranoid. That included expressing seemingly irrational fears tied to an unnamed individual he had worked with in Frankfurt. Blair's boss at his new job and the employees there liked his work, and they confirmed that he was a hard worker who was really good at his job. But as time went on, they began to notice that he was growing uncharacteristically careless at work, and his work ethic began to slide. On top of that, Blair stopped attending AA meetings, although there was no indication that he had started drinking again. On July 5th, Blair took his first significant step in a strange downward spiral when he withdrew essentially all his savings from his bank account. He also emptied his safe deposit box, which contained more than $6,000 in cash, along with thousands more in jewelry, gold coins, and both gold and platinum bars. He packed it all into a bag and began what would soon become a frantic, confusing, cross-continental journey. The next day, Blair attempted to enter the United States by taking the ferry from Victoria, British Columbia, to Seattle, Washington. However, he was denied entry at the U.S. port by immigration officials who found his behavior suspicious. Red flags were raised because they thought he matched certain drug trafficking profiles. He was traveling alone, was carrying large amounts of cash and valuables, and acted nervous and evasive. He also had visible scratches on his hands. After being turned away at the ferry port, Blair returned to mainland British Columbia. The following day, he drove to the Pacific Highway land border crossing in Surrey, British Columbia, which is one of the two main land border crossings located between Surrey and Blaine, Washington. This time he tried to cross into the state of Washington by car, but U.S. immigration officials refused him entry for the same reasons as before. A few hours later, he tried to cross the border yet again, this time on foot, most likely at the Peace Arch or another nearby pedestrian crossing. Border Patrol officers noted that Blair had scratches covering his legs and hands. He was denied entry a third time, once again for similar reasons. On July 9th, Blair changed tactics and drove his car to Vancouver International Airport, where he left it in the airport parking lot. He then went inside and purchased a round-trip plane ticket to Frankfurt, Germany. His former German girlfriend later told law enforcement that he never contacted her about visiting. However, Blair subsequently canceled his ticket to Frankfurt and instead used his credit to buy a one-way ticket to Washington, D.C. Later that evening, he boarded a flight to Seattle, where he then caught a connecting flight to Dulles International Airport. Blair arrived in D.C. around 5 a.m. the morning of Wednesday, July 10th. He made his way to the car rental counter at the airport, where he proceeded to rent a white Toyota Camry at around 6:45 a.m. Shortly thereafter, Blair began a disorganized 7-hour drive southwest. At one point, as he was driving on U.S. Route 250 in Troy, Virginia, he accidentally backed his car into another motorist's vehicle, causing minor damage. The other driver later told detectives that Blair seemed nice but was in a hurry. His road trip would take him over 500 miles until he eventually arrived in Knoxville, Tennessee. The first reported sighting of Blair in Knoxville occurred at around 5:30 p.m. on July 10th at a BP gas station on Strawberry Plains Pike, a major road in the eastern part of the city. Sometime after he arrived at the BP station, Blair told the clerk there that he was having difficulty with his car key and was unable to start the vehicle. Gerald Sapp, a AAA tow truck driver, was called to the gas station. According to Sapp, the key was not even close to the correct model of the Toyota rental car. In fact, it appeared to belong to a Nissan. He handed me the keys and I saw right away they weren't Toyota keys. They looked more like Nissan keys, Sapp later told investigators. I asked him to look in his pockets. I said, if you drove this thing up here, you got to have another key in your pockets. And he wouldn't look. So I thought he was nuts. He was bound and determined that he had the key he needed for that car. The Toyota key was never found, adding yet another unexplained element to the already baffling case. Sapp made arrangements to have Blair's rental car towed to a local repair shop. That way, the rental company could be contacted the next day to get the key number, so they could have a new key made. The tow truck driver dropped him off at a nearby Fairfield Inn to stay the night. The hotel was only 2 to 3 blocks away on Strawberry Plains Pike. Once Blair arrived, he realized he had left his bag behind at the gas station. So after Sapp dropped him off, he drove back to the gas station to retrieve the bag and then dropped it off with Blair at the hotel. During the approximately 40 minutes that this took, Blair can be seen on closed-circuit surveillance footage loitering in the hotel lobby and anxiously pacing in and out of the lobby 5 times. Witnesses variously said he appeared confused, disoriented, hesitant, or paranoid. Blair eventually paid for a room with $100 in cash. The hotel's front desk clerk, a woman named Tika Hartsfield, noted that during the entire check-in process, Blair was very nervous, agitated, and looking around like someone was coming for him, even though nobody else was in the hotel. After she handed Blair the key to his hotel room, he grabbed it and put it in his pocket. However, instead of heading to the elevators, he walked out the front doors of the hotel carrying his belongings and never came back inside. It was later determined that he never entered the hotel room he paid for. That was the last time Blair was ever seen alive. At around 7 a.m. the next morning, Thursday, July 11th, two construction workers arrived early for their shift at a hotel construction site on Crosswood Boulevard, just a half-mile from the Fairfield Inn. The workers noticed something on the ground in the parking lot behind the construction site. They walked over, and when they got close, they made a horrific discovery, the dead body of a man, and immediately called 911. Knox County Sheriff Jimmy Jones initially responded to the call, and he found a crime scene that defied easy explanation. At that time, he was a lieutenant in the Major Crimes Unit, which is responsible for all major non-domestic homicides investigated by the sheriff's office. When he arrived at the parking lot, he discovered Blair Adams's half-naked body. Blair was shirtless, with his pants pulled down around his ankles, his socks turned inside out, and his shoes off. According to Lieutenant Jones, it looked like somebody else had pulled his pants down. Scattered around Blair's body was German, Canadian, and U.S. currency totaling nearly $4,000. In addition to the money, police found a black duffel bag that contained various maps and travel receipts, as well as a fanny pack that held 5 troy ounces of gold bars, gold and platinum coins, jewelry, keys, and a pair of sunglasses. All the items appeared to be untouched. According to an autopsy report by the University of Tennessee Medical Center, Blair had sustained numerous cuts and abrasions. The Knox County Sheriff's Department speculated that many of his wounds were defensive wounds, suggesting that he fought back. In a later interview, Lieutenant Jones said, "It looked like he had been defending himself. He had injuries consistent with someone trying to fend off an attacker." The violence of Blair's death was evident in a massive blow to his stomach, which had ruptured his internal organs. His official cause of death was ruled sepsis, stemming from an abdominal perforation, a violent rupture of his stomach. He also had a severe wound to his forehead, which police determined was likely caused by a crowbar or a club. Law enforcement initially suggested the possibility that Blair's death had been sex-related, but that was only because he was almost entirely nude when discovered. His autopsy showed no presence of drugs or alcohol in his body. The only DNA evidence found at the scene was a single strand of long hair that was gripped in Blair's hand. The hair didn't belong to him, but it has never been matched to any suspect. In a statement made during a public interview for an article published on May 5, 2025, which looked back on the 1996 investigation, Lieutenant Jones said the murder was the most interesting and the strangest case in my entire 31-year career so far. 4 primary theories about Blair's murder have emerged over the years. Each one has its merits, but none fully explains all the aspects of the case. The first and most widely accepted theory makes the case that his murder was the result of severe mental health crisis or paranoia-induced breakdown. Blair exhibited increasingly paranoid and erratic behavior in the days leading up to his death, telling friends, "Someone is trying to kill me," draining his bank accounts, changing travel plans abruptly, and attempting to cross the U.S. border multiple times. Supporting evidence includes the fact that there were no signs of robbery, despite thousands of dollars in various currencies left at the scene, coupled with a series of abrupt, irrational decisions he made in the days leading up to his death. Many investigators theorize that Blair was in the middle of a severe psychological breakdown, possibly related to mania, schizophrenia, or drug-induced paranoia, and encountered his assailant randomly or accidentally in a disoriented state. The second hypothesis is that Blair died as a result of a targeted attack. After all, he had told family and coworkers on multiple occasions that someone was trying to kill him, possibly someone he met while working in Frankfurt on the construction job for his stepfather's company. Supporting evidence includes reports that he had trouble with some of his coworkers there. He told friends that someone was spreading rumors about him and that he feared for his life. And lastly, his murder was especially violent and unusual. Blunt force trauma, partial nudity, and no clear motive. Some people suspect that he was being followed or targeted by someone from his past, possibly connected to work or a romantic relationship abroad. Others speculate that Blair may have arranged or attempted a sexual encounter in Knoxville that went wrong and escalated into violence. Evidence in support of this hypothesis includes the fact that he was found largely naked, which could suggest a sexual context. Although police found no clear physical signs of sexual assault, his unusual state of undress has led to speculation in that regard. The theory is that Blair met someone voluntarily, but things turned violent, either due to a dispute, robbery attempt, or personal conflict. The fourth theory, albeit the least likely one, is that this was simply a random act of violence. Given that Blair was found in a parking lot near a construction site, some believe he may have simply encountered the wrong person at the wrong time. After all, he did appear to be walking aimlessly the night before. Some think he may have stumbled into a confrontation with a stranger or local criminal, and the attack turned deadly. But that doesn't explain why he was nearly naked, nor why all his cash and other valuables were left untouched. In a 2010 interview with local law enforcement, the Knoxville Police Department revealed that it had never received a credible tip in Blair's death. To this day, authorities still don't know why he traveled across the continent in a panic, why he feared for his life, or who he met in Knoxville that ultimately ended it. His mother, Sandra Adams, has never stopped asking questions. In interviews, she has consistently expressed her belief that her son was not mentally ill and that his fears were legitimate. She maintains that someone was indeed pursuing him and finally caught up with him on that fateful summer day. Nearly 3 decades later, this baffling case continues to perplex investigators and true crime enthusiasts alike, with key questions remaining unanswered about what drove Blair Adams to flee across the continent and who was responsible for his strange and violent death. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Echoes of the Unknown. If you found this story compelling, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with fellow mystery lovers. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, every story has an ending. Some of them just haven't been written yet.